We are on episode 69. Very special number for everybody. Today, we have a little change of pace versus what we normally do. Jeremy can't join us tonight, but I have a very special guest. He has the same name as me. It is my father, Andrew Hetzel Jr. I am the third. Many people think I would be junior, but no, I'm the third generation. So we're going to talk and just discuss all of the, how shall I put this, horrible road losses that we have experienced with Packer games.
They're not all horrible, and they weren't all road losses. Come on, man.
This is true. Now I will say this: all the notes that I sent over for the episode or the games, they were all on the road. Some of them are wins, but all of those that we're going to discuss tonight were on the road. So, without further ado, with me as always is Elliot Christensen. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm glad you were able to snag your special guest. I'm excited.
Yeah, I had to pull a lot of strings to get him.
Well, I mean, it's big shoes to fill, but you know, we'll drag Jeremy back.
Yeah, just filling in. So, okay, as just kind of an introduction, Dad, I think it would be good to tell the listeners and other folks that obviously we grew up in Georgia. We had two stints, but in the 90s, you know, we haven't been Packer fans the whole time. And when we lived in a suburb of Atlanta called Alpharetta, there was a certain quarterback that got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons who ended up playing for the Packers. I think we all know what we're talking about. Now, if my memory serves me correct, and my memory has served me pretty poorly of late because I was in a coma for a while and I'm getting older, but Brett Favre lived in the neighborhood across the street from us when we lived in Alpharetta, I believe. Do you know anything about that, or can you lend anything to those tales?
I really don't know too much about it. Yes, he lived in a cul-de-sac and drank a lot of beer. That's all I know. They used to go out in the morning and use a rake to rake up all the beer cans.
It's amazing. So yeah, we never really.
But he knew he wasn't going to play. I mean,
right?
What's his name? Jerry Glanville hated him. Hated that the Falcons drafted him, and there's no way in hell he was ever going to see the field as a Falcon.
Yeah, this is true.
If you were Favre, you just partied, and he partied anyway. But knowing he wasn't going to play, he partied even more.
Yeah, I mean, I was in middle school, and so it wasn't like I really knew what the heck was going on, and nobody really knew who Brett Favre was even back then. But obviously, it's an interesting connection that we lived, you know, a mile away or a couple miles away from Brett Favre, Georgia, and then we come up to Green Bay. So it's kind of one of those interesting stories. So I guess, you know.
But Falcon fans do not remember Brett Favre for being a Falcon. They just remember him for the guy that got away.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, that was pretty gutsy. Ron Wolf gave up a first round pick for a guy who was basically the third stringer who was a drunk. But yeah, it's weird how things come full circle, you know. But so yeah, we I don't want to get into all the details, but you know, we made our way up to Wisconsin because my dad started a business. He was an executive with Kimberly Clark in Georgia. So this is kind of how we came up to live in Wisconsin. And 1996, which was a Super Bowl year, you know, you bought a business. Again, I'm not going to get into all the details. And from there, you know, built it and ran it kind of afar from Georgia until, you know, you kind of had to relocate up to where it was in Green Bay. And that's how we made our way up here in the late 90s. And this is where we can get into the first. We're going to go over a lot of road games that either my dad has been to or my dad and I have been to, or maybe my dad went with some other people. But I myself did not even know this, that You attended the 1997 Packers versus 49ers NFC Championship game in San Francisco. This is the second trip to the Super Bowl, 97.
This is correct.
Okay, so I don't know how many memories you got of that, or if you want to tell any tales of that. I think you told me it was really raining, but.
So, well, obviously, we won the Super Bowl the previous year, and the team coming back was even better. And so it was no surprise that we got back, to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
And I went, that was my first road game ever as a Packer fan. And we went to San Francisco back when it was Candlestick Park.
Oh boy. There you go.
The weather was horrible. It was cold. It was windy. It was raining the entire game. In fact, the weather was so bad that at the end, and of course the Packers won decisively, but at the end, it was like 10,000 Packer fans left in the stadium. I still remember Reggie White running around the stadium with the trophy.
Okay.
And and of course everybody expected us to go back and get the second Super Bowl, and we know that didn't happen. But it was a fun game, my first road game ever, and I know you're going to talk about all the debacles that we went to, but I have to remind everybody that the first road game was a win.
And it was to the right to go to the Super Bowl, so that's even better.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
What's crazy?
And I could kick myself for not going to the Super Bowl, that one, because I figured that was going to be one of many to come, because Brett Favre was, I believe at that time, he was only 28 years old.
Yep.
And
he just won his third MVP.
A lot more to come.
Yep. It's a fickle league, is it not? But the other thing that surprised me is they played that on the road. I was like, I don't know what their record was in 97, but I guess they ended up having to go on the road for the NFC Championship game, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. So that's cool. All right, so now we get into the fun stuff. So the first game that I can remember that you and I went to on the road, it was a playoff game, 2003. Packers take on the Rams this is when they were in St. Louis. And I don't have a ton of memories, but I do remember Brett Favre played one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. He threw 6 interceptions in one game in a playoff game.
No.
And if my memory does if I remember correctly, he had 2 interceptions at least that were returned for touchdowns too. He threw 2 pick sixes out of it.
Yeah, there were at least 2.
Wow.
It was horrible.
Yeah, they got their butt
The Rams
kicked.
were the greatest show on turf. Warner and whatnot. They had an awesome team, and the Packers were not favored to win by any chance. But
yeah, they got annihilated.
Yeah. So I remember that game, not just because we got our butts kicked, but I remember that game because it's the last time I went to a away from home game and got really crappy seats.
I do remember them being high up. Yeah, high up and kind of far away.
High up? We were in a different zip code, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't have been further on the end of that stadium, and it was a dome.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we were like in the far corner of one of the end zones. We were so far away from the action, it was ridiculous. And all the St. Louis fans were very abusive. I'm prepared. I can take it, but we couldn't give it out because we were getting our butt kicked so horribly. It was ridiculous.
6
and it was
interceptions.
so loud in that stadium. It was
absolutely
incredibly loud.
Did anybody else come with us to that game? I recall. Did any other family?
Uncle Larry came.
That's what I was going to say.
I think the 3 of us.
Okay. Elliot, there's a repeating theme here that we have all these great plans, and we're going to have all this fun going to the, and you plan like,
Hey,
you know,
wait,
your
we
little,
had fun. We always had fun.
yes. I mean, I want to win.
The theme was that you expected to win, of course.
Yeah.
Or at least be competitive. So, okay, this is probably, you know, this is the coup de grace, this one right here, and it's kind of early in the list. But the following year, Packers were really good. I think they went 12-4. That was the year when Amon Green was just, and the offensive line was just awesome. I mean, Brett Favre wasn't at the top of his game, but he's still good. I think he had Javon Walker. They were a stacked team, and we go to, and the game prior to this was when Al Harris, it was the Seattle Seahawks, and it went to overtime at Lambeau. And Matt Hasselbeck goes, "We want the ball. We're going to score." And they caught it on an open mic. You remember that, Elliot?
Yeah.
And then, like, the first or second pass he threw, Al Harris picked it off for a pick six in overtime. So obviously we won. And then after that, my dad and I talked and said, well, we should go to Philadelphia because this looks like a Super Bowl team. And they were playing really well.
Right.
Oh, boy. This was the 4th and 26 game, as it is forever known. So I remember going to Philadelphia, and I mean, the town was great. We went there a couple days early, and we were having fun and all that. And then, you know, boy, I got to tell you, the Philly fans are as advertised. Horrible, horrible people. They should be ashamed of themselves. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it was.
No, don't kid. They were ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember actually when we were going into the stadium, I was wearing a green hat, and I think you, Dad, and maybe I can't remember who else we were. Was it just you and I? It might have been just you and I. But anyway, people were saying, "Don't wear your Packer gear on the outside because they'll nail you." And I have a green Masters hat, like a baseball hat, right? And I had like a winter hat over it, but it was a green brim. And we got surrounded by a bunch of guys, and they're like, "Take off that hat. I want to see what you're wearing." And I took off my cap, and it was a Masters hat. And they wanted blood. They thought it was going to be a Packers hat. That was just going into the stadium. So
you're right. You're right. And I do remember we were in a limousine shuttle type bus on the way to the stadium, and we had been drinking beer and whatnot, and we stopped off at a Holiday Inn about a mile from the stadium, and basically do a bathroom break. And you did have your Packer hat on, and as you were walking into the Holiday Inn, they were throwing glass beer bottles at you. Remember that?
I don't.
Yeah, not plastic beer bottles. These were glass beer bottles. And
they were ruthless, man.
And we were outnumbered, clearly outnumbered, so you couldn't really yell at anybody. You just had to kind of hightail it out of there. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing I remember, there were a number of things I remember, but we were waiting in line to get in the stadium, and it was a night game, so people had been drinking all day long.
Yeah.
So most fans, I think, going into the stadium were inebriated. The other big thing I noticed is that 99% of the fans were men, either young men or older men. You go to a Packer game at Lambeau, and it's a family event, right?
Yeah.
You bring your family, you bring your wife, you bring your kids.
Right.
You just, does it get out of hand a little bit, too much drinking, whatever? Yeah, but it's still something you're not afraid to take your family to.
Yeah.
In Philly, apparently they had figured that out way before this, but the family stays home, and it's just a bunch of drunken men,
right?
And they just go and swear at their team, and if their team wins, they're happy, they go home, whatever. But it was a horrendous game. The reason they figured us out is that of course the fans were all pumped up every time the Eagles did something well, and we weren't jumping up and down when the Eagles did something well.
We tried to play it.
Oh, you guys aren't celebrating like we are, so you must be Packer fans.
Yeah.
And,
We just tried to plead the fifth the whole game.
You know, that's
Ouch.
it came out. That was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Now wait, I got some other stories for that. So we had, I'm telling you, Elliot, we had, if my memory serves me correct, we had great seats. I mean, they were like
45-yard line.
Oh gosh.
12 rows up, baby.
I mean, it was
wow.
great, right? And so right around the time when 4th and 26 comes up, I mean, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and we're going to the NFC Championship.
Right? How do you not?
Original round, getting all ready, and then 4th and 26 comes up, and I swear to God, I mean, well, you're still nervous, obviously, and then if I remember correctly, Dad, I mean, this is when you had flip phones, early cell phones. You were getting ready to like try and get tickets for the next game or something, weren't you?
Yeah,
when the
championship game, which was against
when the play was
Carolina
happening.
Panthers.
Yeah.
Right?
And he was like on the phone.
A friend of mine that said, "Hey, if you guys win, you're invited."
Really?
The Panthers had the bye, and he said, "Yeah, if you guys win, you're, plan on coming to the next game." So I had the phone number in my phone, about ready to press send, just waiting for the outcome of 4th and 26.
Yep. And then it was obviously, and it was like, it was a very surreal setting. And then people forget in that game, it went to overtime. And then in overtime, Brett Favre threw a freaking punt on like first down that was easily intercepted. And then they just came down and kicked a field goal. And it was, man.
There was absolutely no reason. Yeah, it was the whole thing was right. The whole play was right in front of us. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, you're like, you see the ball up in the air and you go, who is he throwing this to?
Yeah, he had it wasn't like, 4th down, don't make the first down or whatever.
It was first or second down.
There was absolutely no reason to make the pass, and he basically threw it. The only hope we had is that the two secondary players, secondary guys for the Eagles would fight each other for the ball.
Drop it, yeah. And I mean, and that was also the season where Favre, like his dad died, and he had the big Oakland game, and all that. So it was like everybody was thinking fairy tale finish, and then no.
But so, all that abuse, we got so much abuse in that game, and you're like, we're gonna win this thing after all.
I know. Yeah,
that was.
So the 4th and 26 has a Wikipedia entry, right?
I'm sure it does. I mean, what's crazy is when I talk about, obviously, when I talk about this game, the first thing I always say is, I go, we were there. We were there, and we had
nuts,
crazy good seats.
Yeah.
And so we saw this thing unfold live, and people's jaws just dropped. So it's like,
that's nuts.
At the time you don't know it's going to go down as the 4th and 20 game.
Don't you remember those Eagle fans that followed you into the restroom?
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're giving you a hard time.
Yeah, block that from your memory. That's a good idea.
They were bad.
Comments and crap like that. It was ridiculous.
Those were the worst.
And you know what? And then after the Eagles hit the game-winning field goal, the guys, the bunch of drunken sailors in front of us, turned around and said, "Hey, no hard feelings." And I said, "Bullshit. I'll remember this game for the rest of my life. You guys are a bunch of assholes." He goes, "Oh, if we were at Lambeau, you guys would have been the same way." And I said, "No, I'll tell you what, I will give you my phone number. And if you fly out to a Packer game, I will buy your ticket, and you will see classy fans.
Dang.
You will see it doesn't have to be like this. You guys are freaking crazy." And it was just totally unnecessary.
Well,
I said, we came into your house. We honored your house. We didn't do anything to be treated this way, and yet you treated us like absolute shit.
But it worked out fine. It worked out fine. We
got a lot of games to cover here, but that one, it still feels like yesterday, man.
Oh, I know that one hurt. I think that one hurts the worst.
But it was inevitable. It was inevitable because they won the Super Bowl, of course, right?
Wait, who?
Not that year.
The Eagles. Of course they won the Super Bowl, right? They didn't.
They went to the Super Bowl.
He's being facetious. Yeah, no, he's being facetious. I was like, what?
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah.
Okay, so then we have a gap because
remember that was Terrell Owens. That was that year. What? Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. It was Patriots Eagles.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway, they deserved it, those turkeys.
That's right.
Yeah. So then we have a little gap here because then McCarthy comes in. They had a couple down years, and the next game was, and I wasn't at this game, 2007, the year where they went 13-3 and went to the NFC Championship. So during that year, Packers played Dallas Cowboys, and they were like, I think the Packers were 10-0 going into that game, and my dad and my mom.
I know, but who's counting?
Yeah, really. You have better memory than me. So I think was it you and Mom that went to that game?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't go to that game, but I remember watching it, and the obvious thing I took from that they lost, they didn't get killed, but it started off horribly. Favre was chucking it deep, and then he ended up hurting his arm. Right. So this is the game where Aaron Rodgers comes in, and he almost took him back and won. He didn't, but that was that game. So you were at that game too. That was known as basically, supposedly, when Ted Thompson party and Mike, they were like, I think we know what we got here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I still can remember telling you that Aaron Rodgers is for real.
Yeah.
After watching that game, it was clear because, there you had a guy that was sitting on the bench behind Favre and the first real opportunity he had and a first meaningful opportunity.
Yeah. Right.
And man, oh man, he just Favre started out horribly.
Yeah, he was terrible.
Yeah. 2 interceptions. He just looked like he was freaking out of control. And Aaron comes in, and if our defense had held the Cowboys, we would have won that game because Aaron put up points. But you could tell. Yeah. You could tell after that game, and it was on the road, of course. Yeah. You could tell that he really had talent, and that there was going to be life after Favre.
Yeah. Now, was that played in the new Dallas Stadium, or was it still the old?
No, yeah, it's
the
old one. Okay. I watched that one at Titletown. I remember that clearly.
I do remember watching that game when Favre got hurt. Like I said, he grabbed his arm and he was like, and then they go to commercial, and when he came back, Rodgers was in, and I remember thinking, I was like, oh my God, and then he just So, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much there is to say about that game, but that was still.
I do remember how crappy. I've never been in the old stadium. That's the first time in that stadium, and it was horrible, just horrible.
Yeah. Really, and that's Jerry Jones. Who would have thought he would have put up with such nonsense? But then he built that giant edifice, which we went to later.
Yeah, I only saw that from the outside. It's crazy big.
We talk about how expensive it is to go to a Packer game.
Yeah.
This I do remember it. So we ended up eBay. That's how dated this game is. You could get tickets on eBay, and so got 2 nice tickets. And the guy that was sitting next to us basically sold us 2 of his 4 tickets, and we struck up a conversation during the game. And earlier in the decade, of course, the Packers did their renovation, and you had your remember the what was it, the seat
the license
and whatnot.
Yeah.
License to hold on to your season tickets and whatnot, and they were crazy expensive, like $5,000 a ticket or something like that, or a seat.
Yeah.
And at this game, we had great seats again. We were on like the 40-yard line, and the guy said that he was taking out a mortgage. The Cowboys were offering a 20-year mortgage on basically seats. And guess how much each seat went for?
Oh my God, I don't even.
$50,000, $200,000. The guy took out a mortgage to hold on to his 4 tickets and it was not perpetuity. It was for 20 years. And and that's just rights to the tickets, and then each game is like $500 or something crazy like that. So it's we have no clue how fortunate we are to be Packer fans.
Wow.
Well, that's a very good point. My goodness, a freaking mortgage. Okay, that's there's commitment and then there's insanity. I'll file that under insanity, I would think. But so then we have another little gap, and this is another game where I did not go, and it was 2009 when Brett Favre went to the Vikings. This was the first game of Favre against the Packers in 2009, and it was in Minneapolis at the old Metrodome.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't there, but I remember watching. But Dad, I remember you saying it was like the loudest.
Oh God!
I think you were texting the game or something, and you said it was so loud.
Oh, it was well, and the old Viking Stadium was also a dome, but it was very small. I think it only held 50,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything was, the roof was close. They had instances where if a punter hit a really good punt, they would run into interference and stuff like that. But it was so loud, and of course they have that skull sound that they make, and
that dumb Viking horn.
Big, Viking. It was so loud, and I have a hearing problem. I just took my hearing aids out, and it was ridiculous. You couldn't hear yourself think.
Wow. And I mean, look, the Vikings were jacked up for good reason because they had Favre. It was like built up, and it was Rodgers, Favre, Vikings, all that kind of stuff. The only real thing I remember from that game was that was, or a couple things. That was Dom Capers' first year as defensive coordinator, and Favre just shredded him. And also Rodgers had this really, really good pass touchdown to Jermichael Finley. That was almost Jermichael Finley's coming out game. He had always kind of teased, but then he threw this dart, and Finley broke like 6 tackles getting in the end zone. But outside of that, I mean, they whooped us.
We got our butts kicked.
It was Favre just destroyed.
You remember, Andy, back when you had all that drama around Favre, I had already written him off. I mean, being a business owner, the way he jerked around the Packers for years, year after year after year. Oh, I might retire. I might not retire. I'm not sure what I want to do. A team player does not do that. They just don't do that. So he left the Packers guessing year after year after year, and then he finally retires, and they're like, okay, fine. And then they basically set the team up for the first year without Favre, and he wants to come back and doesn't understand.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that for sure.
Just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, no, I was definitely rooting for the Packers to kick his butt and the Vikings' butt. And of course, that first year he played with the Vikings. They went 14-2,
and then they lost, and he threw that horrible pick.
That NFC championship game, was it, Bounty Gate game.
Yep. And he threw that horrible pick at the end.
Yeah. Threw the horrible pick. In fact, my CFO was a Viking fan.
Oh yeah, Jeff Moots. I remember that.
I texted him right after that pick, and I said, "We know your pain."
Now I will say this, that
was the highlight of our season because
the
Vikings were so good that year.
I watched that game at Stadium View. That place never got so loud. Everybody was like, "Yeah!"
Well, I gotta imagine that in Green Bay, people were torn even at that point. You probably had people who were Favre, like the Packers were still Favre fans and yada yada yada. I'm sure I could see that.
Nobody there that night.
Right? Well, the other people forget that was when
got off to a decent start. I think people quickly forgot about Favre.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. That Vikings team was loaded. I mean, that was part of the reason Favre, finagled his way there. They had Jared Allen. He had great time. I mean, the
Vikings were dominant that year, 14-2.
Remember who their coach was?
There were a number of fiascos that went on the Viking part. If you remember, they also had Ryan Longwell
That's right.
as their field goal kicker.
That's right.
Even in a dome, they didn't count on him after beyond 49 yards. What people don't remember before Favre threw that pick. is they had I think it was 12 men on the field.
That's right. I do remember that, how that it got all set up, and they needed to get 5 extra yards so Longwell could kick it, and that's why he threw the pick.
But two things. But what I remember, it was a stupid pass. I agree. But the thing that makes even less sense is that he had at least 5 yards to run.
Yep.
So
but he wanted to throw. He threw across his body into the middle of the field.
But anyway,
couldn't have happened to a better guy.
At that point, I was elated and quickly sent my text to my CFO.
Awesome.
And that's really, when you think about it, that was the last time you heard of Favre, because he came back that second year and they were horrible.
Yeah, and he was a shell of himself and all that. So yeah. Okay, so now we're into positive territory. 2010, that Super Bowl year, and you and I went to the NFC Championship game in Chicago. I think it was you, me. Was it Kevin? I think that was us three, and Uncle Larry, right? I believe it was. So we that was, Rodgers the week before had played Atlanta, and that was when he had like the best game I've ever seen a quarterback have in a game. That was his.
Atlanta was favored.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that game. That was unbelievable. So after that, we're like, we had experienced so many losses, but we're like, we're not going to lose this game. Chicago, let's go. And then it turned out to be a pretty close game. Chicago had a great defense.
Actually, not. They came back late.
I think it was fairly close.
As I recall, second string, maybe even third string quarterback.
That was the game where Jay Cutler got hurt and like took himself out, and they said that he basically wussed out in the game
by 2 or 3 scores, and I forget who brought him back.
Yeah, I think it might have been their third string quarterback, but they didn't have any like film on this guy, and and at the end, oh God, I remember at the end, you're like, this is for the Super Bowl. It's 4th down. They're up by 7. I think we ended up winning by 7. They were driving just to tie the game. And I'm sitting there and you're just like,
yeah.
And then he throws that pass, and then Sam Shields runs and picks it off. And McCarthy's yelling for him to get down. And he was all jacked up, and he almost fumbled because somebody came up and tackled him. While he's getting tackled, he was down. But right after he got down, the ball came out. But that was a nail biter at the end. I remember that.
Actually, I think one of the key plays late in the game, I believe Aaron fumbled, and Urlacher.
No, he threw a pick to Urlacher, damn near in the end zone.
There you go. He threw a pick,
and he had to track
Aaron
him down.
Made a shoestring tackle on him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
There's
right.
nobody between him and
That's right.
It would have been a 50-yard run. But if you remember, Urlacher was at the time was probably the most athletic linebacker in the game.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. He had
like 4.4 speed, and Aaron shoelaced him, I have no idea. But he went down. But if he had scored, that might have turned the game around.
No doubt. Yeah. And he threw that pick. It was like in the end zone. I mean, we were going in for a touchdown. I remember that.
Right. That's
right. So that was, and then obviously
great game.
It was. I mean, it was a nail biter. You want it after the Atlanta game. You're like, oh, we're going to blow everybody out, and then that one comes up. You're like, ugh. So then obviously the next one is Super Bowl in Dallas. So we went to that, and it was kind of a family affair. It was basically our whole family: my mom, my dad, my brother, me, and my sister. And obviously the game was great and all that. And we got to see Jerry's huge palace, which is you could fit Lambeau Field inside of that stadium. That's
probably true.
God, it was huge. But what was I going to say? It got really cold and they had a freak ice storm in Dallas.
Oh, it was one thing after another.
I know they had an ice storm, and they have no.
We got there like I want to say 4 or 5 days before the game, and when we arrived, they had gotten like a freak snowstorm, 4 or 5 inch storm.
And they have no equipment to deal with this.
Right.
They have no infrastructure.
They shut down.
No snow removing equipment. It was ridiculous. So yeah, it was and remember, this is Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
And the taxi drivers were on frickin' strike.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh.
Because get this, there was
right.
an environmentally friendly taxi company. I think they were using like propane gas or something stupid, silly like that. And I mean, it wasn't like Tesla or something like that.
Right.
And they were getting favored treatment in the taxi line. So the taxi drivers all went on strike.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was like a freaking third world country. You wanted to get a taxi, you literally hailed down a black van and hope it didn't take you to Mexico or something.
But speaking of like the ice storm and stuff, I do remember like there was a bar next to the hotel that we would go to here and there, and people were slipping and sliding and falling on their ass because it was black ice. And again,
Yeah.
they had no salt, they had nothing, and so you just see drunks every now and then. Just I'm surprised people didn't crack their heads open. But I remember we did. I got a bunch of pictures. I was looking through on my computer the other day. We went to they had like, what is it, the NFL? They had like an expo almost.
Right.
Kind of thing, and that was pretty cool to see all that stuff. And then,
yeah, you remember that 4.25/40 I ran?
No, I do not. We're all legends in our
okay, might have been in my dreams, but
I mean the game was. I'll tell you what, the game was great. I mean, the Packers went off to.
Well, we can't start with the game. We got to start. What happened before the game?
Oh. There was the fire. That's right. The fire department was gonna like shut something down, right?
Well, so here's
the building code. There was a building code violation.
Set a new Super Bowl record with the most fans. He wanted to bring in like over 100,000 fans. The stadium normal capacity was only about 90,000, and so he rigged up a bunch of auxiliary seats. And here we are. I mean, remember,
that's right, we were in line when this happened.
Like 5 or 6 years before, before it happens. And so they had all these years to prepare. And on the day of the Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys are arguing with the city.
That's right. I remember they were going to shut them down. They were like, they basically said it wasn't up to code. Well, people are in line to go to
arguing
the
with the
Super
city
Bowl.
over whether the seats they installed met code or not. And of course, who won that? The city said, you're not going to get these seats. And getting into the stadium, we were in a long, very long line, security line, because they wouldn't let anybody into the stadium. And because there were like 3,000 or 4,000 people that never got into the game that thought they had tickets.
That's right. Holy cow.
They never got into the game.
And they ended up watching it on some big screen outside or offering it.
So they had to figure out which tickets wouldn't make it, blah, blah, blah. And then they finally opened it up. And
wow, I
remember it was ridiculous. People were in line so long and they had been drinking a lot of beer and whatnot.
Yeah.
And imagine waiting in a line for a couple hours and you got to take a pee.
I almost totally forgot about that.
It was crazy. It was crazy. And then you get in the stadium. The thing you learn about Lambeau is not only is it a cool looking stadium, but it's highly functional.
Yep.
It's set up really well.
Yeah,
and you go into Jerry's $1 billion plus. It looked pretty on the outside, but you go inside and it was set up really ridiculous. They would have, I don't know, the concourses were all really narrow. The ceilings were low. Right. They would have
every flowing beyond belief too. I remember that.
You're waiting in line. They didn't have enough bathrooms. How can you like spend $1 billion on a stadium and not have enough bathrooms, for crying out loud? And then they would have these kiosks selling hot dogs right in front of the men's room, for Christ's sake. It was ridiculous.
Oh, and then that screen. Remember the screen that they had over basically? I'll tell you what, it's hard. It was when you go to a stadium like that to watch the product on the field, when you look up and you see a high resolution 50-yard wide screen.
Yeah. But the thing I really loved about that game is you had the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Packers, the Packers obviously the smallest.
I know where he's going with this.
City represented by the NFL, but Pittsburgh's not far behind.
Yep. Sticking it to Jerry Jones and his plays.
Duking it out for the Super Bowl.
Right.
Against, in the stadium by Jerry Jones, who's really kind of the antithesis of those two programs, so it was really cool to be in his house duking it out for the Super Bowl.
No doubt. Yeah.
The highlight of that game, the game itself, though, for me, was the Nick Collins interception return for touchdown. You see that replayed. This is what's so cool about being at a game versus like when you see the highlights. What's going on there? When you're at a game.
I got to plug in my computer. It's going to die on me. Hold on.
I want that.
Uh-oh.
But no, one of the coolest things is when you're at a game and you see either a famous play or like something happen from an angle that is not on TV. The Nick Collins interception return for a touchdown. Obviously, we all remember that. The angle we saw that at.
Oh yeah.
Was so cool, and it was like, I mean, the stadium I would say was 50-50 if I had to think about it, because Steelers fans travel really well.
Yeah.
But when he made that play and went in the end zone, that was one of the cool. And to see it from that angle was really, really cool. And also, I mean, everything, even like the Jordy Nelson touchdown, that was Jordy Nelson's coming out party. That was pretty darn cool. But yeah, I'd almost forgotten about that whole fiasco with the seats and all that. That's right. Basically the fire department came out and was like, they were like, and we're all sitting way back trying to figure out what's going on. And they're like, I'm off the code. Yeah, Dad,
I'm back.
Okay, I was just telling Elliot that, and you probably heard that my biggest memory was the Nick Collins interception return for a touchdown.
Oh yeah,
that was, and I was also saying real quick, I probably should have just waited, but I was excited. When you go to games and you see plays unfold from an angle that you don't see on TV, it's really cool, because I always remember that Nick Collins play from a different angle than what they show on TV, different vantage point, and it's really cool to just remember it that way. So.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but who was the offensive star in that game?
Rodgers.
Yeah, but the receiver
Nelson,
who lit it up.
Nelson?
Jordy Nelson.
He had a lot of drops in that game. He would have won MVP.
That was his coming out party. He had 150 yards receiving.
Yep.
And if he hadn't had 4 drops, he would have probably gone over 200.
He would have been the MVP had he not had the drop.
It was so open.
Yeah.
The Steelers were just not covering him. They were covering, our other. Who were the other top receivers for the Packers back then?
Remember, part of the reason I think Jordy got a lot more reps in that game was because Donald Driver hurt himself and was in a walking boot early in that game.
Oh yeah.
I almost forgot about that. Yeah, that was like early in the first quarter. Yeah. And so he was out of the game. Yeah. So it was almost by de facto that they had to get him in there to take place of Driver.
But Jordy was probably their third best receiver that year.
Yep. That was only his third year.
I mean, Jordy was always one of my favorite players, but in that game, he would have won the MVP, but
he had 4 drops.
He had 4 drops, and I do mean they were 20, 30, 40-yard gainer kind of drops.
Yeah,
right. You know who else had a really bad
150 yards receiving in that game?
James Jones had a drop too. It was a dart that Rodgers threw. Nobody in front of him. And if he'd have caught it, it would have been a touchdown. And it would have been like a 60-yard. It would have bounced off his hands.
The score ended up being closer than I thought than the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Watching it, the Packers just
they were up 21-zip at one point.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it didn't feel close at all.
When you're at the Super Bowl though, and it's like close at the end, and Roethlisberger's got the ball, and it's like I think we were up by 6, so they could have won. This wasn't to tie it, and you're sitting there, you're like, and you're like, there's no other. This is it.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
gotta
Right.
stop here.
Well, we actually had a defense that year.
Oh
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
The
Come on,
last
William.
time. The
Yeah.
last time we had a really good, a decent defense.
Yep. That team was loaded on defense, man. And Nick Collins, he's one of my all-time favorites. I really miss him.
Yeah.
So, yep, obviously that's the pinnacle. Now, we're on to another nasty road loss. 2012, Packers versus 49ers. This was the Kaepernick game. I didn't go, but my dad and sister, I think, went out to San Francisco.
Oh no, I refuse to admit that I went to that game.
Yeah. Good.
You
Good.
went.
Nope,
So-
he didn't. I heard him. He said he didn't go.
All right.
That might have been. I think that might have been the last game in Candlestick.
Was it a candlestick? Okay.
Yeah, Kaepernick.
That was.
It was a shit show.
I mean, the Packers were up.
We weren't up.
No, they
No.
were one because he threw a pick six in the beginning. They were up
Yeah,
7.
that was it.
Yeah. Okay.
All
You know,
right, calm down.
he had the Packers number.
Yeah.
He was.
First
I
time
don't.
Kaepernick had the ball, he threw a pick six,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh wow, this is going to be a good game, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
We were totally outmatched. I think Kaepernick might have had 180 yards rushing in that game.
He
Yeah.
broke the all-time NFL record for quarterback rushing in that game.
Whenever,
Of any game, not just a playoff game, any game.
like, nobody would even remember Kaepernick if he didn't play Packers.
Look, I've said on this show that Kaepernick owes his contract extension, the big one he got, to Dom
Mhm.
Capers.
Oh,
he
yeah.
wasn't.
The biggest
dominated
contract
the Packers.
extension, ridiculous extension in the history of the game is about to come up here in our next game.
That's true.
What are we talking about?
The
Oh,
next game on the list.
sorry. I was like, which game? So there's nothing else to say about that game, huh?
Oh man, here's what I would say: is as bad as the Philly fans were, the Niner fans, they're like Packer fans, man. They were just so they were nice. They razzed you a little bit, but they're just cool. They were cool.
I could see that.
All right. So next one is Cowboys. Yep. So 2013, Rodgers goes down. I can't remember what game, but it was the first time he broke his collarbone. And Packers had Matt Flynn, and they went to play the Cowboys in Dallas. I wasn't at this game either, but Dad, you were, and they were down 26-3 at halftime, and they came back and won. I believe they won 27-26.
No,
They didn't-
it was 37-36 or something crazy like that.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think they scored any other point. The
Obviously, we had to dominate the second half to be down that much, but
Yeah.
took one of the guys that I worked for, Wisconsin guy.
It's Dave
his
Hallett,
wife-
right?
Yeah, his wife was from Wisconsin too. But how do you grow up in Wisconsin and become a Cowboy fan? But anyway, she was a Cowboy fan, and of course
Yeah.
you could tell in true form. We're getting our butts kicked 26-3 at halftime, and she wasn't like razzing us or anything. She's like, oh, I don't know. She's just like worried about what's going to happen in the second half. And sure enough,
I don't remember a whole lot of that game, but I do remember.
Oh man, it was crazy. It was crazy.
And it was Matt
Cowboy
Flynn.
fans, I remember how quiet that stadium got. It was ridiculous.
That guy only played 3 games, and
Yeah, you know what? The other day they had a video came up on YouTube, and it was Matt Flynn throws 6 touchdowns against the line. Do you remember when he came in and
that
the
one I
last
totally
game for
remember.
Rodgers threw 6 touchdowns as
Yeah.
a backup?
Yeah.
Man, he was.
Yeah, but
He-
that Cowboy game is what got him the big contract, I think.
Yeah, me
Is
too.
that
Yeah.
when he-
Yeah, both of those helped.
Well,
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, remember he
But
signed with the
the Lion
Seahawks.
game didn't really count, but the
Right.
Cowboy game that counted, and the way
Right.
he brought him back and whatnot it was absolutely amazing. And I actually thought Flynn was a decent quarterback, but apparently
He sucked everywhere else, but he played good for the Packers.
No, because Russell Wilson ended up.
Yeah, we really don't know if he was any good.
Flynn never really had a chance to start with the, with
that was the big contract he signed, and this is what happened. So he remember he got cut by the Seahawks, and we took him back when Rodgers got hurt. That's how he came back.
Yeah.
So 2011 was when he threw the last game, and he was a free agent, and he threw 6 touchdowns in his one performance, to the rest of the league. And then that's when the Seahawks signed him. But then they also drafted Russell Wilson. But yeah, he stunk everywhere he played except for the Packers, which is interesting. But.
Yeah. But if I remember right, it's before, salaries became even crazier with the quarterbacks. But
it was probably just before.
I want to say Flynn got like a $10 million signing bonus.
I think he signed like a 3-year deal with Seattle or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, the money wasn't guaranteed as much back then, but I think he got a $10 million signing bonus.
It's crazy. Yeah, so, he made a lot of money.
No kidding. He did. He seems like a really good guy, but
sure, yeah. Anybody can be a really good guy. You give him $10 million extra dollars.
Goober. All right. So 2000. This is one of my favorite games. 2013 Packers versus Bears. This was the last game. Rodgers had come back. He was out for like 7 or 8 weeks with a broken collarbone. They put him on temporary IR, brought him off, and they had to win this game to get into the playoffs, to win the division, get into the playoffs. I think they were like 8-7 or something. But anyway, Rodgers, and this was on the road in Chicago, and Rodgers, he was pretty rusty. And this game, it was you, me, Kevin, and my friend Justin. My friend Justin's a big Bears fan for whatever reason.
The only Bear fan in the group.
Yeah, and he's not from. He's from Wisconsin too. I don't know how this happened, but anyway, so we're like, so we brought him along, and Rodgers played okay, but he was rusty, and then obviously comes down at the end, and I can't remember the exact score, but they had to score a touchdown. They couldn't kick a field goal or anything.
It was 4th down.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, on this last drive, he converted like 3 or 4 4th downs on this last drive.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
This is the famous play where Rodgers throws the bomb to a wide open Randall Cobb on a blown coverage on 4th down for the game. It was like a 40-yard touchdown, and everybody's seen that play.
Julius Peppers was,
and Matt Flynn,
tackle him.
John Kuhn slid over and barely got him, which allowed Rodgers to bootleg out.
Rodgers a split second to get unload the ball. Otherwise, Peppers would have. Yeah, Rodgers never would have got that ball off.
Now, this is another one of those games, Elliot, where we had great seats, and this was I mentioned before, like when you're at some games and you see a play from a different viewpoint than what the camera shows.
Sure.
And remember, we were on the opposite side of what you see the camera on TV. So we got to see it from the other side, and we had really good seats. And man, I remember we're sitting there, and Justin's like slapping me, my Bears friend, he's slapping me on the head, and he's like, you're going. Give me all this shit, right?
There was kind of like their version of 4th and 26 because
it really was. It really was. It's a good point. It's a regular season game still, but yeah. So he slapped me, and he's like, finally got you, and it's 4th down. And I mean, obviously, with Rodgers, you could never give up. And so I remember, I'll never forget. He rolls out, and I didn't think he was going to throw a bomb, but then, like right when he aired up to throw it, I looked down, and Cobb was like, there was nobody within yards.
Yeah.
And I go, that's going to be a touchdown. Like even before he released it, and all he had to do was just hit him, make that. But it was like, that was. And so it went from my friend Justin going like this, and he just like just sunk in his seat, could not believe it. But
he was slumped over.
Oh, hilarious!
I thought he was going to cry on us.
Yeah. Like I said, the coolest thing about that was seeing that play from the opposite side of where the TV was, to see that unfold like that. So yeah, that was another one of those games where you're like, I was there.
We were actually at the enemy territory. Bear fans all around us, right?
Oh yeah.
And we were losing that whole game. I don't think we were ever ahead.
I don't think so. Not until that last play.
Close,
and
but
every Bear fan was convinced that they were going to find Rodgers was going to get us.
So all they had to do is, make one more stop. The game's over, and the Bear fans are just going nutso, and and then Cobb, catches the pass, goes into the end zone for a touchdown. That stadium was so quiet.
Yep. I remember you could hear a pin drop. It was hilarious.
And we were so ecstatic.
That was one of.
And then poor Justin had to ride all the way back to Green Bay with us.
Good.
Yeah.
It was. I thought it was poetic justice.
Yeah. No, that was one of my all-time favorites, just because.
Hey, we're undefeated in
Chicago.
Chicago, aren't we?
This is true. Yep.
It couldn't happen to better fans.
All right. So this is the last road game, and this was a big loss. We have since stopped going to road games. 2014.
I've been to one other game that I'll talk about, but yeah.
So 2014 opening game against the Seattle Seahawks.
The year after they won the Super Bowl.
Yep. This was Seattle. And Packers are supposed to be good. Obviously, Seattle just won the Super Bowl, and I remember when we get there, they're unfurling the Super Bowl banner, all this pomp and circumstance. It's the first game of the year, nationally televised, all this good stuff. And man, I will tell you, that Seattle team was obviously just absolutely stacked. I mean, the Packers ended up that year being really good and going back there for the NFC Championship game. But the one thing I remember about that game was how loud that frickin' stadium was. Oh, yeah. Look, I'm a big rock and roll guy. I've been to tons of concerts that are really loud in enclosed areas. I've never had to wear earplugs, and I wore earplugs in that stadium in the second half. I could not believe how loud that stadium was.
And it's an open air stadium.
Yes, it is. It's everything they said it. I was just stunned at how loud it was. It was so loud. And I mean, that was the Legion of Boom defense, and the Packers got waxed.
We got our butts kicked.
It was.
We had a blast.
Embarrassing.
But we had a great time. Seattle fans were a lot of fun too.
Yeah, no doubt.
They were a lot like the Niner fans. They were fun to be around. But man, that stadium was so loud. It was ridiculous.
I couldn't believe it. For an outdoor venue, I couldn't believe how loud it was. But that was like I said, they had. I'll remember that game where they basically sacrificed an entire side of the field. Richard Sherman, I can't remember, that was in his prime, best cornerback in the league. And I think they either put Jordy Nelson on that side, and they just never threw at him a single time. Never even threw on the side of the field.
There are very few secondary guys that Aaron Rodgers is afraid to throw on. I would say Sherman is one of them.
Yeah, and he was legitimately afraid to throw on him. I think he admitted it even after the game. He's like, they never threw on that side of the field, not one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
They played scared in that game, and it cost them because when you play scared, you're going to get your ass kicked.
That's true.
Well, the craziest thing about that game is that we're like, oh man, the Seahawks are so good. And then the Packers end up going back there.
I know.
In the NFC Championship game.
That's the biggest meltdown in the history of professional sports.
We've got a chance to go back out there, and I'm like, after shellacking, I am not going back out there. And so I'm watching the game for 3.5 quarters, and I'm like, oh man, did I blow that one? We're finally, we would have kicked their butt. That would have been so much fun. And then the last 5 minutes, we just completely fell apart. I'm so glad I wasn't there.
Well, I was going to say, if I was there and saw that happen, I would have spontaneously combusted.
Yeah.
Watching it on TV was one thing, but to be there and watch that happen, my God, that would have been too much.
Yeah, it was too much.
So that's now you said you've been to another road game. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I went to the opening of the Viking new stadium. I went to that one.
Now, full disclosure, I have no memory of that time because
I think we lost 14-10 or something like that. And that's a beautiful stadium. It's a great stadium. It holds. It's bigger than the original dome, but I believe, if I remember right, they can open up the ceiling if the weather's decent. They can open up the dome. Great. It's a beautiful stadium, though. Really nice.
I have no memory of that time because of the coma. That's honest. I don't remember any of that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think Zimmer, this year we're 50-50 against him, but Zimmer, by and large, has the Packers number.
Yeah.
He's a good coach. I think he's a good coach.
Defense, his
no
defense
doubt.
has normally put a lot of pressure on Aaron and
Right.
boy, the last game, the opener was really kind of obviously not a typical Viking game. It was
Right.
in Minnesota, but in a totally empty stadium, and then they come to our house, and I didn't think we were ever in that game. So anyway,
Right. No.
but a lot of fun going to all those road shows, and just the coolest thing about going on the road is you just get a totally different perspective when you're on the road. You learn other fans. And the thing I always I'm reminded of is how cool Lambeau Field is. We take it for granted. It is such a cool experience, and being right in Green Bay, it's
Right.
we're just so fortunate to have the Packers in such a small community and whatnot. I'm reminded of that every game I go to on the road.
No, that's a good point. Did we, going back to Atlanta / Alpharetta, did we ever go to a Falcon game? I don't even think we did.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a few.
That was at the Georgia Dome, Elliot.
I had some buddies that invited me to the Falcons, but
Georgia Dome, a dump. Good Lord.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, so we were talking about, Packers won the Super Bowl in '96, and then they go back in '97, and then the year after that was that 1 year. Since we're talking about the Falcons, that was the 1 year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl and got shellacked by the Broncos. But that was like the Dirty Bird year. But it was like, you talk about a city that was starved, and it was just this flash in the pan year.
Yeah.
I was still living there, and I remember watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but do you remember what event happened to their safety, I believe? Former
Eugene Robinson, who was on the Packers the year before.
I know.
Yeah, we might as well bring that up right now. So, do you remember this, Ellie? What happened to Eugene Robinson, safety?
No.
Okay, so this is hilarious. So it was like, so he was with the Packers, and then he went to the Falcons.
The year before.
The year before, and then they went to he signed with the Falcons, and they go to the Super Bowl. So the night before the Super Bowl, you do remember this?
Yeah.
Night before Super Bowl, might as well say it anyway. Night before Super Bowl, they have all the awards with the league, and like, oh, he's the best outstanding man. He's the moral
man
compass
of the year.
Man of the year. And then after that, he gets arrested for soliciting an undercover cop as a prostitute.
Oh my God, that was crazy. Wow. But the other thing I remember about that year, the Vikings, once again, the Vikings had a phenomenal year.
That was the 15-1 year, Randy Moss's rookie year. They went 15-1.
Yeah,
and they blew it in the NFC Championship game.
And remember how they lost?
It was the Vikings kicker. He had never missed a kick all year, and he missed one.
And it was not a hard one. It was like a 35-yarder.
Yep.
He makes the kick, and the Vikings are in the Super Bowl.
Couldn't have happened to a better team.
Oh yeah.
So, you guys want to do predictions? I think I was thinking that we would have.
We normally do predictions for the next game at the end.
Yes. So I was thinking that we would have our guest have his prediction work against Jeremy's record. So then when we tally it up at the end of the year, I I need some wins here. We gotta handicap.
I don't even know what our record is. I'm sure mine's.
We gotta handicap Jeremy somehow because I'm sure he's winning.
That's true. Now they're playing the Jaguars, right?
Yeah.
Jaguars?
Yeah. And the Jaguars are like 1-7. They're not.
They're terrible. The Packers are pretty good. It should be a domination. But
Good.
I mean, yep.
Are you sure it's the Jaguars and not the Colts? When do they
No,
play
the Colts are after. It's the Jaguars next.
Yeah, it's Jacksonville. Okay. Jacksonville's
Jacksonville's 1-7.
Yeah. Got it.
And this is at Lambeau, right?
Yeah.
Does it really matter?
It doesn't really matter. I know. I don't pay attention anymore.
Because COVID, no fans and all that. Well, let's see. I mean, it's an awful team. I usually pick the Packers to put up around 30 points. So I'm going to say 31-17 Packers.
Okay.
I mean,
Packers. Anybody know what they're favored by?
I don't pay attention to any.
They're favored by about 13. It's the biggest spread. It's the biggest spread of the week. Yeah. It's big. It's big. Yeah.
Well, here's the other question: do the Vikings have a running back? Because if they have a running back, I'm worried. I mean the Jaguars. If the Jaguars, if they have a running back, I'm worried.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the temperature is going to be like, but assuming it's decent and not raining, not windy, Aaron Rodgers will.
Yeah.
You'll put a lot of points on the board.
I think they're getting Lazard back.
I'm going to say 31-17.
That's what I said.
Oh, I know. Come on.
Same score. Well, I can't be the same. I'll say 34. I'll say 34-17.
There you go. Same score, same name.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna up this. I'm gonna go 37-11.
11. Nice. So I think they get back. I think they're getting back Lazard.
I honestly think it won't be that much because if they're ahead by that much, they better be taking Aaron Rodgers out. But honestly, they should be destroying Jacksonville.
I mean, they should.
Shouldn't even be close.
After that Viking game, I'm just like, I mean,
Aaron Rodgers or Aaron Jones should be at full strength. Lazard should be back. Like, there's
Bakhtiari's coming back.
Oh, Bakhtiari's back. Like, what excuses? There's no excuses.
Not anymore.
Well, the thing about the Packers is I think they're well coached, but they're not good enough to just show up.
Right. No, they got to come ready to play. Yeah.
And I hand it to LaFleur. They're usually ready to play.
Yeah.
And of course, that last Niner game was kind of like why the Niners they had so many injuries. It was
the Packers actually had a lot of injuries too. I was going through them. I mean, the Niners had more.
But nothing like the Niners.
Oh, but I was surprised how beat up the Packers were too. But yes, the Niners were it was like a freaking like the C team.
Well, their vaunted defense was decimated.
Yeah. But that's the way the game is played, and that's been the plenty.
You don't apologize. You play who's in front of you.
That's right.
Totally agree. I'm just saying, I still, the thing I don't like about the Packers is
the
our
defense
is crappy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our defense. Hopefully, they find a way to get better. But our defense, we don't need them to be great. We just need them to not suck.
Agreed. No, I agree. You don't need that. We're just asking for a middle of the road defense. Did any of you guys watch the Buccaneers? The Bucs play the Saints.
Yeah, it was epic.
I didn't watch it, but it was 38.
I think the Buccaneers might be the favorite team in the NFC right now.
Well, they just lost that. They got waxed by the Saints.
I know, but I like their defense, and defense wins championships.
But the Saints beat them twice.
It was poetry.
I know.
They got them head in that division. I think the Saints.
How did we beat the Saints? How did we do that?
I have no. This is the league. It's week to week, right?
Yeah, it is. It is week to week, but the Saints are always good, and they got. You know what? We were talking about like losing a quarterback, like the Falcons losing Brett Favre. We lost Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, that's the only team that Taysom Hill could have gone to that I think they'd use him that way. Maybe Belichick might use him that way. But McCarthy, he had no hope in Green Bay. McCarthy
no. And we don't really need somebody like that on the Packers, but it's like, oh man, like
he's exciting to watch. But
he's so good.
Part of the reason they lost the game against us, though, remember, he fumbled. They tried to run some trick play, and Darius Smith made him fumble.
I know. That's probably true. I guess I feel a little better about that.
All righty. Yeah.
Can't complain. All right. Here. I mean, it's a weird year, of course, but the result you can't complain about. I think LaFleur is the real deal.
It's hard to say he's not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his record speaks for itself, but I mean, but he's, he seems just focused. You know, he just seems like he's got singular focus. You know, like
I like how he kind of. It sounds hokey, but he really does tell it like it is. He'll get up at a press conference and be like, "We got our butts kicked," and then he'll call. He doesn't do a lot of coach speak when you think he's going to do a lot of coach speak.
Maybe that's what I mean. Like there's just this like clarity.
Like he does it sometimes, but then a lot of times when you think it's coming, he's like he tells you straight up.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah. I love that.
The thing I like about him is the special teams. You know, our special teams have been really, I wouldn't say stellar, but they've been pretty decent.
They bumped up a notch for sure.
How many years did we have where they were just horrible?
Yeah, McCarthy under McCarthy, he never even. It was like a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah, and I gotta believe we're one of the least penalized teams in the league right now. We just don't make we don't hurt ourselves, with penalties,
which is huge.
No. Speaking of McCarthy, you think he's going to last all Dallas? My word, do you think he's going to make it through the season?
He will.
He has to. They're on their
fifth string. Won't fire him the first year because
it'll make him look bad.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
They're down to like their fourth string quarterback. So there's.
But he's going to have a short leash next year.
You look at LaFleur and the difference between his offense and McCarthy is like night and day.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's the approach. Like even when you listen to the press, like I said, it's all these little things I'm noticing with him. It's like, it was definitely time. And look, the game has passed McCarthy by.
But it's like watching chess versus checkers. I mean, LaFleur, it's a chess match out there, man. He's very unpredictable, and
McCarthy was line up to beat your man.
The only difference so far is he hasn't figured out how to get a defense, and McCarthy never figured it out either. So if LaFleur can figure that out, who knows how much we could get back to the Super Bowl, but we got to have an adequate defense.
Yeah, I mean, if we fix that, we're not that far off either. It's really not. Like it seems like it.
I think with the defense, I think if the front seven, particularly the defensive line, I mean, if they got one really solid, it doesn't even have to be like a Pro Bowler, one really solid, big body defensive line, I think that would do wonders.
Yeah.
Wonders.
Yeah.
Just
that key change.
I was saying the other day that when you look at our defensive line, they look like linebackers. They're so light.
They seem small. Yeah.
Like even our defensive ends and like just across the line, it looks like linebackers. They look like they're 50 pounds their weight. They just look small and light. Like they're not built to defend the run in any respect, which is.
I don't know. I think the key is the teams that have great defenses, they do have a great front four, but they also have really athletic linebackers.
Yes, and we don't have any athletes at linebacker. I like Martin though. That new draft pick.
Yeah, but he's a rookie.
Yep. And he was hurt.
I think he could really be a great. The guy that they got from Cleveland, same thing. If they can keep him healthy, I think they might actually be okay in that position. What's oh man, talk about short memory. The guy that played middle linebacker that last year that went to the Giants.
Blake Martinez.
So what kind of year is he having?
He's having a really good year.
Is he?
Yes, and the main reason
had an outstanding record.
Yeah, but no, here's the thing. The reason he's having a really good year, like darn near Pro Bowl, they have a great
Giants, what's their record? They're 0-9.
I get it. I'm just saying. The reason he's playing well and playing better, their defensive line is much better than our defensive line. So they're keeping these linebackers clean.
I don't know.
That's part of it.
He always made a bunch of tackles after they got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards.
Well, so did
Yeah.
AJ Hawk was drafted number 6 overall. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
a lot of busts.
The thing with AJ Hawk is I don't think he was a bust, but he did not live up to his draft.
Yeah, underwhelming.
He was solid, but if you got the 6 overall pick in the draft, solid ain't good enough.
That's right.
You're supposed to have a perennial all-pro when you pick top 5, 6. He played what 10 years or so. He hardly ever got hurt.
Yeah, he was durable.
He was the guy. Good guy on a great team, but not a great player like you needed to have.
Now, do you guys have you seen the Pat McAfee show? Dad, are you familiar with that show at all? It's an online. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Elliot. But basically, Pat McAfee is he used to be a punter, but he has a new radio show, streams online. He's really good. You wouldn't think it'd be good because he's a punter.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring him up is AJ Hawk is his co-host.
Yeah.
That joins him all the time, and AJ Hawk's pretty good.
Yeah.
And every Tuesday they bring on Aaron Rodgers. That is really good.
Yeah.
Rodgers is a really interesting guy. He's just like, in many ways, you're just spoiled with the whole package with him. I mean, he's so, like when you bring on other quarterbacks to pick their brain, it's all boring shit. It's like you can tell he's genuinely curious about everything in life. It's really cool.
Oh, he's known for that.
Yeah. Okay, I think we should wrap
we
this
went
up.
what almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I was looking for a natural breaking point. We kind of didn't have one because we didn't talk about the game. It was a little weird.
Like, just beat it.
So no, I not at all. Like I would talk to you guys all night. You know that. But as far as putting something out, I want to try to get it out tonight. So go Pack Go.
No, this was great. Thank you for joining
All
us.
right, enjoyed it.
Go Pack Go.